All right, December 14th, 2022. Okay, higher time frame outlook. We're looking at the 1 hour chart right now, and this is my buy side activity. So, just as a reminder to anyone who hasn't seen my previous videos or isn't aware of how I trade and what we're up to, we are trading SMC style, and I primarily trade off of sell primaries and buy primaries. What that is where we have a range, an initiation that breaks structure, and then price comes in, takes that previous order block, and then rejects away, right? And that creates what's known as a primary in my language. And the primaries are what we expect reactions from. Bit like a RIMC, range initiation, mitigation, continuation. But these carry more weight because they were the range that took the liquidity and then initiated away. You can see them on lower time frame, you can see them on higher time frame. The higher time frame ones are much more powerful and can cause more reactions than the lower time frames. Okay, so let's get it. So we're inside a higher time frame sell primary, can be seen on the 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour daily, and it's a strong zone. And so we've been sort of looking at these mitigations and seeing what the heck's been going on. We see we had a strong mitigation here. We were expecting it to hold for a little bit. It did. It even broke some structure, and then eventually it sort of took off. And it started initiating higher prices. Well, what I noticed was we had this one range right here, which I thought was interesting, which is also some sort of a primary. The difference with this is it didn't break structure, right? So we've got this range initiation. You got another one here, range initiation, and then this block here came in, take all that liquidity out, and then pushed prices higher. So it's a lower time frame buy primary is what this is. But on this chart, I can't draw it like that because it didn't fit all the rules, is what, it didn't fit everything that I consider to be primary. On a lower time frame, it will, but on this standpoint, it doesn't. And so we just draw it as a regular range. And what I noticed from this range is something quite interesting. Number one, I was expecting just RIMC, which is what we got. But check this. Every time this order block was touched, every time, structure was broken to the upside. So what I mean by that is price fell down, came into here, mitigated something, and then broke structure to the upside. They came back down again. Let's rate this out. And what happened? Price came back down into the order block. It didn't even have to go below that low, but once it did, boom, break a structure. And so this was, as I was seeing that, I'm like, well, that's an extremely bullish sign, isn't it? So when we're kind of thinking this is a strong mitigation at the top, and we're seeing things like this happen, and we're seeing a break of structure here, another reaction, and another break of structure, and prices say in this area or this area, and what can we conclude from that? Well, we can see it's bullish. They are initiating high prices from this order block. This is where they want to protect. They're protecting their low. They're protecting this order block, and so that is higher prices. It's as simple as that. So now what do? We just look for reasons for us to get involved into the market once we've got an idea that of directional bias, and so that's really what we've been doing. So I've been seeing these longs for a while now, and of course we made some sort of a primary here. It fits all the rules: range, initiation, break of structure, comes back in, takes liquidity, and initiates away. Fits all the rules on this chart. The only weakness about it is it didn't break major structure. That's the only thing. We would have liked to have been this whole range that broke structure, and then to see something deeper come back in. That would have given us a really good higher time frame primary, but to see one form just here is good enough too, because this is a 1 hourly, so we can expect a reaction. And what's our reaction? A low. A low's been formed, and as it's formed in, we've broken structure, similar to what was going on here. Every time they pull into the order block, they break structure, right? So we had that one touch that didn't finish forming until here, and then it broke structure to the upside, and then it just started building and building. Here was news. This was some sort of news thing, 5:30, 5 o'clock, right? And I do not even bother to take much notice in news anymore. I used to every single morning. First thing I'd do is pull up the daily news, what I'm expecting. I don't even bother doing that anymore. I do have my major news announcements that will show up on my charts at the bottom here. They'll tell me when, there's a major news announcement. But that's it, and then I will just keep that in mind for my trading, just to make sure that if I'm in a position, my stops maybe break even or something just before the news. But it's not going to stop me getting in or stop me getting out. So anyway, over to recent price action. So we know this is news. Oops, excuse me. We know this is news. A strong mitigation has occurred. It was a 1 hour primary. Let's see if I got it still drawn on the chart. Let's have a little look. I do. Let's just have a little look at that real quick. Why can't I go into replay mode? Something's up. Yeah, they won't let me into replay mode. Maybe my chart's broken. Doesn't matter. You can see it from here anyway. Range, initiation, break a structure to the downside. Pricing came straight back up and formed a sell primary, right? And what have we mitigated? The sell primary. So we're inside a 1 hour sell primary that's super close to origin. In fact, I believe that this is we'd consider this origin sell primary. Unless this is it, unless that's the one that took liquidity to the left, which it could have done. We'll have to have a little look. It definitely took it there. We'll have to see what this mitigated to the left-hand side. And so most likely this is the actual origin sell primary, but this is the one that formed inside of this block. So it's also origin because of that. There is no other liquidity that they could have grabbed at the top, really up here, without breaking structure. So this is a very, very weighted order block. And so this could be an order block that we get a reaction from, right? Now, we're going to do one of two things. Let's just go to the daily real quick, and this will just help clear this up. We're going to do one of two things. This primary is either getting worked through, right? This primary is either getting and then we're going to take higher prices, or we're going to be reacting from within this block right here. There's no two ways about it. We could make equal highs, but if we're making equal highs, then we're likely going to run it. And so this is right now is the actual top end of this order block and us penetrating through it. Now, if we're going to react from it, here's the best place to react from, somewhere around where we're at right now. And what have we got? We've got a lot of cores here. What happens when we come to an order block and we're about to reverse? We do slow price, don't we? Oftentimes we'll slow price before the reversal because we're accruing our position, right, before we're about to initiate prices in a different direction. So that could be what's happening. They could also just be, this could be looked as strength, because you can also see it as we're just nibbling through the order block, working our way through it, getting through all the orders before we initiate in higher prices. So there's a couple of ways of looking at it. We could also be doing this, right? We could also be nibbling your way through it, right? Breaking structure before we whip down, but don't take out this structure at the bottom, because they want to break this because this is going to become our new low. So this could be what's occurring right now. We've slowed price down to take the high, to initiate up here, and then to pull down, take all that liquidity on the low side into our last known buy primary and initiate high prices. Okay, this will be, in my opinion, the decisive factor. This high, whether or not this holds or not, will decide if we're going to be going long or short for the higher time frame perspective. So it's quite an interesting high to have because it's the last known primary. It's the last known one that we've got in this area. So and it's a very, very strong one. Look at it on the daily. I believe it even shows up. Does it show monthly? Not really. It just shows us an order block on monthly, but I think weekly as well we can see it. Yeah, so there's that range. And so it's a weekly order block, so it's extremely, extremely strong. Anywho, price initiated up due to news, came back down, found some support, and has been rallying up, right? This was the interesting factor to me, that if we're initiating higher prices from this area and we've initiated, should we not break structure? And so I woke up seeing this, that there was no break in structure. What does that mean? Does it mean that we're stacking cause for a future move that's about to happen now? Or does it show weakness in that, hey, we mitigated something, we tried to mitigate or try to push up, but we just got rejected back down? So I'm seeing it as a weak sign, and so I'm looking for shorts from anywhere around this area, and I'd be looking for longs anywhere around this area, right? Just sort of makes sense, doesn't it? You've got range initiation. Our initiation hasn't completed, but the fact it was we came up to the high and rejected away shows weakness, so we can now trade off of this order block. And then from the strength side, we've mitigated something, initiated up, taken liquidity from here, and started our initiation up again. Actually, we took the liquidity from here, I beg your pardon. This was the liquidity grab. So it would look like this would be the strong zone that we'd look to see higher prices from. So let's go to our lower time frame. I caught one trade today, one hit wonder, not a 10R. I think it was 7, and we should discuss it. So let's first of all look from our buy side of things. I'm on the 1 minute chart now. And on our buy side of things, this is sort of how I've been seeing things. Here's that news announcement that came in, and I'm just looking for my buy primaries, to start me off in the day. And so I always do that first thing. I'll see any kind of range initiation, break of structure, and I'm looking for buy primaries to form because these are what I'm going to be trading off of. So here's one range. We've got 2 ranges here initiated. They broke structure. They came down in and aggressively moved price away. So that formed a buy primary. And then inside of this buy primary was this lower time frame buy primary. So let's have a little look at that. So we've got, you could say that this was the entire range initiation, break of structure, comes back in, takes liquidity from the bottom but doesn't break structure fully, and off and away it goes, right? So we got a buy primary that we consider to be origin as well, because it formed right at the low of the of this whole range or primary, right? And so this is where we were expecting a reaction from. I just pull this back a little bit. And so I wake up to the charts, right? I start trading about 7 o'clock-ish. Here's about 7 o'clock-ish. And so I'm looking at all this, and I ray this one out, and I'm thinking to myself, well, they don't activate until they've broken structure, right? So here was the break of structure. Notice how we never came back into this order block, even though this looks like it was formed after, and sure enough it was after it broke structure here. It didn't come back in until after this break here. So when I see something like this happen, a little nibble at the open and a rejection away that formed a buy primary, guess what? I'm thinking higher prices all day long. That is a very bullish sign to me. And where would you expect in a primary? Where do you expect a reaction? You expect a RIMC from the range that's been formed within that range, right? From A to B, we created a range right at 50%, and they often create it at 50 or below. And this is my RIMC range. So what do I expect in here? Am I looking for another buy primary to form, or a sell primary, or what am I looking for? Ideally, just a change in character. Take the low, take the high, this kind of stuff. Just hold price, but just change character in some way. There's many ways to change character. You could take the high, take the low. There's many ways. Look, we've got a range here, initiation. They come back in, creating a primary without that break in structure. Well, what is that whole process that I've just drawn out here? That's a change in character, right? It's an MS. And it doesn't matter really who you're learning from. It's the same shit. It's the same thing. It's the same pattern. It's a structural change, and that's what we're looking for, right? Right around this area. And so that's exactly what we got. Price initiates away, and this low holds, right? And so now we're doing it sort of all over again. I'm in a sort of a weird space with all of this right now because I'm kind of like looking for my buy primaries and stuff, but this is very complex rangey, and I'm not sort of seeing the fluidity that I would like normally want to see. And so while I should be looking for buys right this second, I'm not, because I'm just wanting price to play out and show me something more familiar to what I'm used to. I don't get me wrong, I do see we got range, initiation, prices come back up, right, to potentially take from that, and the range started here. So this is forming either a huge buy primary, right, or it's literally formed for liquidity purposes. And so because of the size, because of everything I'm sort of seeing right at this very second, this is why I'm able to do the video right now, because I just want to see, I want to see what's going to happen, right? Now, over to the flip side of things, we've got this sell primary formed, right? Because this came up, took liquidity. If I zoom out, you can see where we took liquidity from. I believe it was actually up here. It's very, there's a wick right about there. I don't know if you can see it too well, but right there where my mouse was. And so that's the liquidity that we took, that only this range took. This high did not take it. So this is the range that took liquidity and then broke on itself. That creates a sell primary, and now we are able to trade it. Now, what did I just say about ranges? They'll oftentimes, from A to B, from the range leg that they form, they'll put in, so I should actually be drawing, I guess, from here to here, but it's basically within this point here and this bottom point here. They will create a range, and that range will usually become the reaction range that will react from and continue in that direction, right? And so what are we looking for in those kinds of areas? We're looking for that change of character, like I was just talking about. So we're looking for a change of character. And I've written this here, from this primary, sell primary, and then we're going to be looking for lower time frame sell primaries to continue our movement down, right? So the first thing we want to see up here is a change of character, and the next thing we want to see is a sell primary. We can enter off of either. We can enter off of the chalk, much risky, and we can enter off of sell primary, much more, much higher probability. Okay, it just depends on our feel, whatever we want to feel now. So I did take a trade here today, 7.15R. Why I didn't hold out for 10R? I didn't even see if this would have held for 10R. Look at that, wouldn't have even got 10R. Would have just taken 7. Wouldn't have taken a dime, right? So why have I adjusted my stop on this one? And I'm going to show you. So the first things first, sell primary, and I'm expecting a reaction from this range, right? This is where I want price to react from, up here. This is where I want to be trading from, for my full 10 hours. Now, what's happened is we liquidated and mitigated. So as price came up here, took liquidity from the high, right? And I draw my arrow over, and I'm like, okay, so what have you mitigated? Well, this is just wick. This is just wick on this side as well. And so what have we actually mitigated? A nice looking order block. Range, initiation, break structure, right? Very, very nice looking order block. And to me, that's a real mitigation. I know that this is transitional, okay? What does transitional mean? Transitional means I mitigated something that was from a prior event, a prior time, and the prices just moved through that zone without having a mitigation of it. So when I see us mitigating here, I immediately write LM, liquidation mitigation, just to tell me, it's like a signpost to me. It's like, hey, guess what? We've liquidated and mitigated. It's like you can enter. It's almost like that. You can totally enter. That's the first thing I want to see, right? And so what do we know when we mitigate a Toblerone or a transitional order block? Is that it will become liquidity. When? We do not know. We don't know when it's going to become, but usually it's sooner than later, and it's all relative to the chart you're on. So we're on a 1 minute chart, so I fully expect this high to go. Soon. Sooner than later is really what it is. And I do expect something to happen here. And now I don't know what it will be. I don't know if it will be a rejection of price, but I do expect something to happen in here. If we push all the way through it, then this will get reacted upon later. But that's my bias, right? And that's what I'm focused on. This is what I see when I look at the charts. So, onto the trade then. So, we've had this mitigation, liquidated and mitigated, and I'm trying to sort of make sense of what I'm seeing. And it's at this point on the 15 second. Now, you've got to interpret this however the heck you want to interpret this, but this is how I interpreted price. We've got an inside bar on the 15 seconds, right? What's an inside bar? It's a range. It's a small range in this terminology because or in this time frame because it is only 15 seconds. And so we've got a range that stacks money to the upside. We've got a break in structure, which was a wick in this instance. So I've got a range, initiation, break of structure. We've then got price has come and taken it. From this low, it initiated prices all the way up. Now, if we go to a 5 seconds, we can see that we have from this low to this high is created the range where we took the liquidity, right? Now, this is something I don't think I've spoken about, but 50%. And so as ranges are formed up, in this instance, when they come back to 50%, that is the range completed, okay? So that is why I had my sell primary drawn from the low of here and not from the low here. It's because this A to B has completed the formation of that one range, and so this was the actual range that took the liquidity. That means that it is this that I want to play off of. I mean, sure enough, I can play off of this too, but it's much more higher time frame, and this is much more refined, right? And this 50% stuff that I just mentioned there, this works on all time frames. And you need to definitely spend some time researching 50% of ranges if you haven't already. You'll find this. Everything mitigates to at least 50% of every single range. How is that even possible? Pull up any time frame. You'll find that every single range that is ever formed will mitigate back to at least 50% at some time or another. It is just what happens. It's just how the market is, and it's phenomenal, the intricacies of these markets. It's mind-blowing, actually. Anyway, we're not going off on a tangent. We're not going to go on a rant. We're just talking about this trade and why it's 7R and how we connected, and we're going to look at how beautiful it was, all right? And admire my brilliance. Range, initiation, break of structure. We've got this liquidity formed here. They came up and grabbed it on the second leg of this push-up. And then broke structure to the downside. The moment they broke structure to the downside, I'm interested, and I place my order, right? I wasn't expecting price to zippity-doo-dah day up this high, if I'm honest. I didn't realize we were going to be forming a new primary at this point, but they did. They formed a new primary right here. I wouldn't be surprised if we react out of that. Oh, look, here's the reaction, right? Sell primaries. Look them up. Can everyone see this one? Is it just me? Look at this range. You don't even have to draw this shit anymore. Range, initiation, break of structure. Right? What structure got broken? Right down here. Right. The range was formed. Boom. Price initiates up. Doesn't take liquidity on that first leg. It's the second leg that takes it, and so it's this leg that becomes the range that we can play off of. There was liquidity stacked here as well. A range initiation, break structure is the same place, and so look, they took liquidity from both ranges here. Fuck it, I'll draw it on just like that. So I wasn't anticipating another sell primary, but I did just pop my order. I was honestly expecting this high here to hold. As soon as I got in, I expected these highs to hold, and we were going to range initiation away. We bobbed up. Ideally, I would want my stop safe, something like that, but I didn't. I got it at 2 pips, and it worked out fine. Now I'll go back to my 1 minute to show you. Let's get it spread out a little bit so I can see it. There it is. Okay. Don't know why I couldn't see it before. Okay. So where's my target? Okay, something new I've been playing with offline is looking at targets as far as this. So I know this is transitional. I'm not expecting to get my full reaction away because of its transitionalness. And so, what do I anticipate? I do anticipate a break in structure. And I was looking to go for the next, not unmitigated zone, but the next zone that was beneath structure. Let's just say it like that. Now, let me try to explain that a little bit better. We've got this forming here, right? So as we're pushing up from this low, and we're pushing up, notice how we didn't come back to 50%. I talked about this just a second ago. So we didn't come back to 50%. So this is the range that's forming, right? And has taken all of this liquidity, right? It's taken all the liquidity from this high. And so we could say range, initiation, break a structure. And so I'm anticipating that this is going to form the sell primary. All right, so this range here is now going to become my sell primary. What do I need to enter in a sell primary? At the top of the sell primary, I need a sell primary to enter into. I got that, right? We've had a lower time frame sell primary, I'm entered. So now where's my target? The low of the sell primary. Okay, that's the easiest way of saying it, the low of the sell primary. But if the primary, right, here I want to explain this because there's a difference here, right? If this, even though this is the higher time frame sell primary, if this range here and had a stopped here and price had to come and clicked 50%, I would have had my range drawn from the low here to the high here, and my profit target would have been the low here. Because all I wanted to do was to finish forming this primary. And the fact it gave me the little extra was just the icing on the cake. And so I just wanted to to finish forming the sell primary with the purpose of that's where price is likely to liquidate and mitigate again and reverse. And sure enough, it did. Now, as price was pushing down, right, strong initiation away, had my my buy limit here, right? So I'm trying to my take profits right here, and I see this happening, and I'm looking at it. I'm going, well, should I move my stop loss? Should I just get out of the market, right? These are questions that we have, you know, in the backs of our minds. Are we just going to react from this range initiation? And so I'm saying to myself, if I see a buy primary form, then yes, absolutely, I will be I would want to get out of the market, right? And it was this that formed it right here. So let me show you the buy primary that was potentially forming. Range. And I was waiting for an actual break structure and everything. Like, I'm not going to just take a weak primary. This has to form a proper primary for me to change my stop loss. Range, initiation, break of structure. They came down to take that liquidity beneath it, right? And so I was thinking to myself, when I start seeing this rejection up and away, I'm thinking to myself, hold on, is this the one? Maybe it was from, yeah, as soon as it breaks structure here, this is it. As soon as it broke structure down here, it was potentially forming that primary, right? And so I'm like, okay, this was it, and that's what goes through my head, right? So I'm like, okay, we could be creating this primary. I understand what's happening. Let's just move my stop loss to the top of this where this primary is, because if price does from here go up here, that's the primary formed. I don't want to wait for the primary to form, so that's why my stop loss goes in, right? And I moved it. I'll show you where I moved it here. It was right here after that had been formed and price was sort of at this level down here. So I've moved my stop loss, waiting for to get tagged. I get tagged, and then they have a reaction. They take a little bit more, and then boom, reversed on my ass, right? Brilliant trade, brilliant location for take profit. Very, very, very well traded with stop loss and risk management and all the rest of it. The only thing I wish I had have done differently is anticipated that they would have been putting in another another sell primary, right? And actually got maybe entered a little higher or something like that, rather than just taking it right there. But everything worked out, all is well, and that's a great trade to have taken. So I'm pretty excited about that. What am I doing now? Well, on the sell side of things, I'm just waiting to see what we get up here. Yes, we have formed this sell primary, and we've bobbed straight back into it. Now, the only range that does exist on this sell primary, let's just clean this up, is origin, right? We've got these origin sort of lower time frame primaries up here. But from this high to this low, beg pardon, this low here, the only range that formed was this one right in here, and we're not going to take it because it's in the lower half of this order block. Unless we were initiating fast and furious away, this is not where we want to be trading from. And so the only thing we've got to trade off of is something up here. So I'm going to allow this all to play out. I'm not willing to just jump in right now. I do definitely want to enter in this area. This is where I want to be entering from. So I'm letting price just sort of sit on my hands at the moment, just do whatever it wants to do. I'm observing the buys, but like I said, I've got sort of a weird thing going on with the buy side of things at the moment too. The primaries are just huge, and this is the one that's forming right now. And so it's kind of like I just need to set my hands. I just want to let them play price out how they want to play it out. But it just feels to me that we're in very much so a high time frame range. And so sit on your hands, guys. Do whatever you got to do. Play your edges. Do whatever, play it however you want to play it. I'm reading price correctly, but it's just getting a little bit too complex at this point and not giving me the entries in the way in which I'm sort of used to seeing them. That's really the best way I can think of saying it. Aloha to anyone watching. Hope you are smashing it. Have an amazing day. Hope you're making a shit ton of money. Love, aloha. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.